Hello, everyone. Welcome to Facts and Two Cents. This is Petal. Hope you are all doing well. As I am recording this, it is quite gray and rainy in New York. So I hope wherever you are, it is bright and sunshiny. And please send us some of your warmth and sunshine. Much appreciated. I also want to take the time off to really send some love and support to our friends and family and squatties in Jamaica who has right now gone through a horrific storm or hurricane that went by there and destroyed a lot of Jamaica. There's flooding there's such destruction. So please keep Jamaica in your prayers. And I think it also touched Cuba as well. So please keep all of our brothers and sisters and friends and family in Cuba, in Jamaica, and anywhere else this hurricane touches at this time. Whatever you can do to support, whatever you can do to send help to Jamaica or Cuba, go right ahead. So yes, but definitely keep them in your prayers. And so anyways, back to this. As you know, for the last 5 episodes and onwards, we are going back and focusing on Prince Harry's memoir, Spare, and specifically some of the nuggets in Spare that on first reading or listening, I completely missed. And so I've done 5 episodes of this, so we are going to be good. This is our 6th episode. And really, for me, going back and reading, I realized just how much I missed. And I think it's all in the excitement of reading it and then you grabbing on to different things. And there are some things that just sort of slip through the cracks. And so this is me going back and wanting to know every single thing that I can get out of this memoir. It's so deep. It's so passionate. It's so heartbreaking. There's so much to this memoir. It's unreal. Prince Harry did such a great job detailing his life. And I am so appreciative to get to know just his thought process and why things are. So in episode 5, it was about Harry and King Charles, well then Prince Charles, or at least Prince Charles, taking Prince Harry to South Africa on one of his I need some good press tour, so let me use Nelson Mandela and my son in the Spice Girls to get it. No matter what, I need good press and I need good ratings around the world. So let me use whomever I can to get that. So I am picking up that story 2 years later. So that was in 1997, a few months after Princess Diana, at least 2 months after Princess Diana passed away. And this episode 6, we're going to be jumping ahead 2 years. So in 1999, 2 years after Princess Diana's death, or a little bit under, this was about April in 1999, Harry now left Ludgrove. He's now a 14-year-old. He is now at Eton. And one of the things that we learned from Harry at Eton, joining William at Eton, William being the older brother, is that, I'm an older sister and I grew up with my younger sister. So I understand this mentality very well, even though with the royals it goes deeper. When Harry got to Eton, he was thinking, great, I have my brother there, really excited because again, at Ludgrove, he's by himself. Finally, he has family. And lo and behold, William is like, you and we don't know each other. Just pretend you never heard of me. I don't want to know you. Don't come around me. I don't want you messing up my clique. I am the big man on campus, or at least one. And I don't want any little brother hanging around and messing up my coolness. Now, yes, that was bad. And and it's just like, oh no, how do you treat your brother that way? Well, I'm an older sister and I grew up with my younger sister, who is 2 years younger than I am. So it's kind of the same way with William and Harry. Harry's 2 years younger than William. And the bane of my existence, my growing up with my sister, was my grandmother, because we grew up with our grandmother, would dress us alike. I hated it. Everywhere I went, there she was. And then she couldn't pronounce my name. And then she couldn't say the S. She couldn't sound out an S or a T. And then she wouldn't call me by my name. She would call me Tita. And I hated it. I hated it because, I'm trying to be big girl. And there is this little one and she had teeth like fangs. And it was just like everything about her irritated me. And I didn't want her around me and I didn't want to dress like her. So I totally understand this vibe. And even Harry talking about it now, I remember, I think he did an interview with it. He talked about, when it was happening to him, it was hurtful. But now that he has 2 kids and he sees the different interaction between Archie and Lily, Archie being the older one, and Lily, the younger one, just want to be with her big brother. And Archie's like, go away. I think everyone who has a younger brother or younger sister have this kind of dynamic. Very few don't, but a lot of us have this kind of dynamic. You want to feel like you're the big man or big girl, and then the little one is there and you're like, oh man. So that was William's vibe at Eton. So I could understand this, but it's wild because even with something that normal and that dynamic, just normal, with the royal institution, that goes even deeper. And we're going to get to that in a second. But flash forward 2 years from our last episode, 1999. Harry and William are on, I guess it's Easter break because it's around April. So I'm assuming that's when it is, Easter break around there. And so they're on break, and King Charles, ever the man, if it's about him and if it's going to Africa and it's about him getting good press or him getting something that it's for him, then he'll go and take, Harry with him or whatever. But if it's not and it's just for the benefit of the boys, let's call in the nannies, let's call in the handlers and let them take care of it. Never it is for the boys' benefit. So, needless to say, Harry and William are on break from school. Let's let Harry tell the story. It says, must have been early spring 1999. I must have been home from Eton for the weekend. I woke up to find Pa on the edge of my bed saying I was going back to Africa. Africa, Pa? Yes, darling boy. Why? It was the same old problem, he explained. I was facing a longish school holiday after Easter, and something needed to be done with me. So, Africa. Botswana, to be precise. A safari. Safari? With you, Pa? And there again is Harry, so like, time with Pa. Remember the last episode? Time with Pa. Anything to be time with Pa. The thing that he desperately needed more than anything else. Safari with you, Pa? No. Alas, he wouldn't be going along this time. But Willie would. Oh, good. And someone very special, he added, acting as our African guide. Who, Pa? Marco. And so it's really interesting again how much, again, Harry held on to those crumbs that he just, whatever crumbs Charles would throw at him, he was just like, he's just so needy to spend time with Charles. But going to Botswana on a safari that would benefit his son, it wouldn't benefit Charles. It wasn't about Charles, and Charles wasn't about anything that didn't benefit him. He wasn't about just doing things for the sake of his son. Oh, no. Going on a private safari. That's why we have no photos of this at all. This is the photo above. I think it was a Christmas photo that Charles had put out with the 3 of them that year. And there are no photos on this. But if it was something where Charles was going to get photos and good press, Charles would be there. But this was a private trip. So no photos at all, at least non-publicly that we can use. And so, no, let's send in the help. Let's send in Marco. And Marco was this big red-headed, he was in like the Irish Guards, I guess, I think the Scottish or the Irish Guards, this big redhead. Harry's also redhead. And Tiggy Burke. And that was the one that Princess Diana just didn't trust her and thought she was gonna, Charles was angling to marry her. Turned out they claimed that it was false. It actually turned out that Tiggy had a bit of a little romance with Marco, oddly enough. We're talking about them, but these were the two that was sent along, I guess, and I'm assuming other bodyguards was sent along with Harry and William to Botswana. And it's a very interesting because Marco was really William's person, his security, his personal security, his personal handler, really. And Harry did, I think Harry probably met him a couple of times, but didn't know him at all. And so Harry says, I wanted to ask Willie what it was like to have such a man minding him, guiding him. But apparently the Eton rule carried over to Botswana. Willie didn't want to know me in the bush any more than he did back at school. So it's a while that, I'm sure Harry goes on to talk about the times that, him and William played a lot with other kids and all of that stuff. But even back then, and again, going back to the big brother, little brother thing, it's just like William never really wanted Harry around him no matter what. So it wasn't just an Eton thing. It was not just, I don't want you messing up my stuff with my friends at school. Even in Botswana, in the bush, when none of their friends, he didn't have to worry about any of their friends or what he would look like having a little brother tag along. He just really did not want Harry. He didn't want to know Harry. He didn't want him around him, even in the bush in Botswana. And so it's very interesting with this trip that Harry was able to connect just the difference. And I think, even though he had a great time in South Africa with his dad, this trip really helped him to see and really helped him to grasp the difference between Africa and the UK, but also with the African people, the culture, and also with the culture within the royal institution. And it really opened his eyes to see the difference with the relationships. As I am reading it, I realized wow, no wonder Harry wanted out of there. No wonder. He craved love. He craved hugs, and he craved his love language is just out there on his sleeves. And I'm like, no wonder he did not fit into the royal institution. No wonder he loved being an African, loved African people and their culture so much. Because so much of what the royal institution is opposite to who he is and the things that makes him feel human. And so Harry goes on to address this thing and the comparison between the royal institution, his life within that royal family, quote unquote family, and what he saw and felt in Botswana. He says, as a royal, you were always taught to maintain a buffer zone between you and the rest of creation. Even working a crowd, you always kept a discreet distance between yourself and them. Distance was right. Distance was safe. Distance was survival. Distance was an essential bit of being royal. No less than standing on the balcony waving to the crowds outside Buckingham Palace. Your family all around you. Distance. It was as important as you being on that balcony waving. And he goes on to say, of course, family included distance as well. No matter how much you might love someone, you could never cross that chasm between, say, monarch and child, or heir and spare. Physically, but also emotionally. It wasn't just Willie's edict about giving him space. The older generation maintained a near zero tolerance prohibition on all physical contact. No hugs, no kisses, no pats. Now and then, maybe a light touching of cheeks on special occasions. And this is so important because it totally explains the Queen's relationship with Prince Charles and now King Charles. When King Charles talks about his mother being basically a cold fish in his memoir that was written by Jonathan Dimbleby, he really went on. He really didn't have much of a relationship with his mom. He never respected her, honestly, after that. But she was very cold to him. There was never even though I'm sure, there's a general love between them, I'm assuming. But Charles could never cross that chasm between mom and child. There was always this thing between them. She's the queen, you cannot cross. She's the monarch, you cannot cross. There's always that thing standing in the way. Even though they may love each other, the monarch stands in the way of mother and child. And the same way he said, the same thing between heir and spare. No matter how much he loves William, and no matter if William loves him, there is that wall, that heir and spare wall that neither of them can cross, emotionally or physically. So hence, space. I don't believe William ever really knew Harry. Harry has wanted to know William, but they never knew because there was always that thing. They cannot cross. The heir and the spare, they had to be separate. The heir could not go and meet the spare halfway, or the spare can't rise up and be equal to nothing. They're in these fixed boxes that they're put there and nothing can cross it, physically or emotionally. And so you have an entire quote unquote family who are emotionally stunted because there's no love that can cross the barriers of monarch and heir and spare. There's always that thing standing between them. But there cannot be genuine love between two human beings. And as he said, they're the older generation, they maintained a zero tolerance for physical contact. No hugs, no kisses. That's why it's so weird when you see some kind of level of affection between someone in the royal institution. It just looks so odd and they look so awkward doing it. That's why Meghan and Harry being so tactile is just like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe. Now they're trying to do it a little bit, but a lot of times you see, even pictures, you'll see pictures of Charles maybe hugging Harry back then, whatever. But a lot of that, I think, was for the cameras. Because you don't want them to think you're just these loveless people. You want to portray an air of something. But behind closed doors, nope. And so it's really wild. So when Prince Harry said that William basically maintained that I don't want to know you either at Eton or in the bush. Stay away from me. This comes into play. That it wasn't just an older brother, younger brother thing. This is what was trained into them. This is what was trained into William. He is better than Harry, and Harry could never be better than him. That's what was trained into him. So therefore, nope, you can't be around me. And even when you see interviews of them later, just seeing the passive-aggressive language that, passed between them, and how William spoke of Harry, that even if it comes across as, oh, we're just joking, when you understand this, you're like, oh yeah, there wasn't really a joke, was it? And it's really incredibly wild to see this, to see the coldness of how the royal institution operates, and to see when you see some of the decisions they've made, in terms of how they've treated Harry and now Meghan, you really is like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That because this is who they are. And so I think when Harry talked about those moments, and he gives those fleeting moments when his dad is sitting by his bed and cuddling and stroking his face until he falls asleep, I think that's why it was so important to Harry. That's why those fleeting moments have been so important to him. Because for those fleeting moments, he had physical touch on his face. And for him, that's a sign of love. And it's the scraps that Charles would give him that he so craved. William, never. Like, get away from me. And that's why he even says, with the older generation, no hugs, no kisses, no pats. Now and then, maybe a light touching of cheeks on special occasions. They have to be actually special. Other than you bowing to them or whatever, just on special occasions, you might, and for the cameras usually, you get a slight peck on the cheek. Or touching of the cheeks. And Harry compared this coldness and this distance of the royal institution to what he experienced in Botswana. It says, but in Africa, none of this is true. In Africa, distance dissolved. All creatures mingled freely. It says only, basically, and then he talks about the lion as the only one that sort of like strolls around like he's the, king of the jungle. But even the lion mixes with other lions, even though he has that air about him. It says, on the other hand, maybe it wasn't the mere closeness of living things that I liked. Maybe it was the mind-boggling number. In a matter of hours, I had gone from a place of aridity, sterility, death, to a wetland of teeming fertility. Maybe that was what I yearned for most of all. Life. Maybe that was the real miracle I found in the Okavango in April of 1999. So when you see Harry doing all of those things to protect the river, the Okavango Delta, Harry fell in love with that place because there is where, for the first time in his life, he was around life. He was in a place where there was no class, there was no hierarchy, there was no this wall between people where there's no physical or emotional connection. He was there mingling with everyone, and everyone there mingling with each other. He was there with Marco and Tiggy and Willie, even though he didn't want to be around him. And then they had all the guides that were protecting them and all the guys that were taking them around the Delta and showing, Harry talked through this thing about, with one of these guys taking him to all of these places in the park, showing him all these animals and birds and all of these things, and helping him to appreciate the animals in the bush or in the bushes where they were. And it's so incredible that he talked about, you go from this place of just coldness, loveless, death, and just distance to this incredible place in a matter of hours that just has all kinds of creatures and all kinds of people that are just there loving and laughing and joyful to be there and telling stories and sitting around bonfires and just drinking and laughing and just being alive. What that would have done for a 14-year-old who has just lost so much. And he also says, and that wasn't even counting the bear hugs and high fives from all the trackers and guides. What is the thing that the Royal Institution doesn't have? This. The hugs, the high fives, and all the people just loving each other and eating and drinking together. There was no rules, there were no walls, there was no chasm between people physically and emotionally. Everyone were there, just having a great time, laughing and telling jokes and hanging out with the animals and just experiencing the danger, including Harry almost getting himself eaten by, I think it was like a tiger or one something. But all of it was just life. And on so many levels, you can see, when I read that, I was like, no wonder he loves Africa. No wonder he loves going back to that continent. Because that's where he really understood life. He understood, and he found the people that were just like him. He found and discovered his love language. was among people who loved and hugged and are free and give high fives and just sit around laughing and talking and just enjoying nature and being one with each other and nature. Harry was not made for the royal institution. He was not made for that institution at all. And that's why long before Meghan, he wanted to leave. Even the reporters were like, yeah, he was, always talked about wanting to just get out, wanting to get away from there. I can't imagine what it's like. You're living 30 something years of your life among people, even though you love them, they're your God-given family, but knowing you just did not belong there. And I have to think that's exactly what Princess Diana was going through. She did not belong in that cold, distant place. That's why she struggled so badly in that place. She needed love. She needed hugs. She needed kisses. She needed the pats on the back. She needed to just be around people. She needed life. And Harry found life in Botswana among the African people. And it's no surprise. I mean, when you read this, it's no surprise that they left. Who could survive? And Meghan is the same way. Look at Meghan. She's about life. She's about living her life. She's not about being in a cold environment around people who just refuse to love, refuse to really be among the land of the living, really. And Prince Harry talked about, I love this when he talked about after, him and Meghan were stuck in the UK for 13 days beyond what they planned to go in 2022 when the Queen died. Prince Harry, they had to stay and, suffered so much abuse at the hand of the press and the palace and all the shenanigans that were going there. And there was a photo of Harry and Meghan leaving the final service at St. George's Chapel, and they just got into their car to leave, and just the look on Meghan's face and Harry's face, it was just like, oh my God, we need to get out of here. You could see how drained they were. And in despair, Harry said that him and Meghan left the UK the next day for home. This is the longest they had ever been away from their kids. They were desperate to go home. They were desperate to be among their kids. And this is what Harry said. He says, for days and days, we couldn't stop hugging the children, couldn't let them out of our sight. Though I also couldn't stop picturing them with Granny. The final visit. Archie making deep chivalrous bows. His baby sister Lilibet cuddling the monarch's shins. Sweet children, Granny said, sounding bemused. She expected them to be a bit more American, I think, meaning, in her mind, more rambunctious. But they were loving, sweet, loving little kids. But I love where Harry talked about getting home with them and just they could not stop hugging and kissing their children and just couldn't let them out of their sight. Could you imagine King Charles being that way, or that scene playing out in the palace? Just hugging and hugging and hugging. Judging from what Harry told us, what the vibe was in the palace and how they were to each other, that chasm. How King Charles, or then Prince Charles, spoke of his mother who would go off on 6-month trips to the Commonwealth and leave him with his grandmother. I think when she came back from one of her trips, I think what she gave him was a handshake or some craziness like that. Imagine not seeing your mother for all this time and then you came back and got a handshake. That was the kind of environment King Charles grew up in. I have to go back and clarify that. But I think that's what I read, that she came back and she only gave him a handshake. Where's the hugs? Where are the kisses? So unlike his son. So unlike who Harry and Meghan are with their children. And so it should surprise no one that Harry and Meghan have to get out of there. Who could live among that? It's not surprising that they have left and now are enjoying their life. Their life filled with love, life filled with joy, life filled with hugs and kisses for each other and for their kids and for their dogs. That's who they are. That's who Prince Harry is. And I'm so happy that he's found someone that he can have that with. I'm so happy that he can express that with someone who is the same way, because he surely was not going to get that within the royal institution. Anyway, guys, that's it. That is episode 6. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new here and you have not subscribed to our channel, go ahead and subscribe and click the notification bell so you know when we drop a video. Please like and share the video and join the channel if you're able. That would be awesome. Thank you guys again. Thank you for watching. I love you all, and I will see you in episode 7. Have a great day. Bye.